Really appreciate you guys making some time for us today and appreciate all of the attendees for joining. Like I was saying, I know it's like a super busy week for everybody with being Earth Day. And so appreciate you making some time to come together. It's always great to be together and be able to talk electric transportation and all the exciting opportunities that are available with it. So I think we could go ahead and get started, Nick, if you want to kick us off.
Sure, yes. Well, good morning, everybody. We're thrilled to have you here and at this next virtual event of the Electrify the South convening. Many of you have been with us before for other events. And as you can see here, we kind of have an overview of what we are working on. And of course, it goes over the Electrify the South collaborative kind of summary of the project, the efforts we're doing. We're really trying to find and promote and share best practices around how to encourage electrification in the Southeast and the South. This, of course, is a very direct partnership with our friends at Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, Dory and the whole team there, as well as SSTN, Southeast Sustainability Directors Network. And of course, we both as organizations work well together, but we have a lot of peer organizations and partners in the space that really help us move this work forward. And again, for all of you in local government and around the South, we are learning from you as we go too. Every state has different policies around this work. Every community has different focuses and different ways of trying to work to build electrification in their fleets, in their transportation systems. And so this is a space for us to continue that work and to ensure that we are learning from each other, and also that we can keep a little view on the horizon of what is going on at the federal level. What are some key state provisions that we might want to be aware of as we go through this work? And then how do we fund this work? How do we actually implement this work? So we really are in the Electrify the South project and program trying to bring a soup to nuts approach of thinking about all the different components that you need to know as practitioners day to day to be successful in this electric transition. So with that, the agenda is here. We're going to have a few minutes here for Dory to give a little resource overview. We're excited for several guests to come through and have a few different conversations with us, which I'm excited to hear what they all have to say and learn from them as well. And then wrapping up, Dory will lead a few polling questions and kind of the next steps for Electrify the South, kind of next calls and when those are coming up, just to make sure those are on the calendar for you all. So Dory, is there anything else you want to add before we move into the next step?
I think you covered it, Nick. Thank you. All right. So I just wanted to remind folks, if you're new to the call, welcome. Great to have you. How we have these virtual events and then where we store all of the information from our events so that you can go back and make sure that you've got all of the resources that we're talking about at your fingertips. So we do have a website, and I'm going to switch over to show you the website. There we go. So it's electrifythesouth.org, and under programs, it's right there under the collaborative. So if you click on that page, we have our information about what the collaborative is, what we're doing, how you can join. And then we have all of the events and recordings in a tab, and we also have all of the resources in another tab. And then we also add in all of the local governments that are participating so that you can see who else is part of the collaborative, and you can also it'll help facilitate conversations if you want to have a conversation with another local government that's part of the collaborative in between the meetings. So the events, the way that we have the website organized is events. So if you click on that tab, you can go back again if you are new to the collaborative and see all of the past meetings. So for each of the past meetings, we have the video, we have the agenda, we have the video of the event recorded, and then we have any of the resources that were discussed during the call linked. And then in addition to having the events tab, we have the resources tab. So if you click on resources here, we have all of the information that we've discussed by topic, so that if you're like, I wasn't at a meeting, I don't remember when that topic was discussed, but you want to know more about the tax credits, So here are all of the resources that we have, including the annotated forms. If you want to have those examples, we have information about electric vehicles, about charging infrastructure, about planning, and then additional support. So those are all of the resources that we have. If you do not want your local government added to the list after you've participated in a call, just make sure that you email me and let me know. But otherwise, we'll assume that you do want to have your name on the website and add it on. I also created a resource guide. So all of the resources that we have on the page, instead of having to click a couple different times, decided to just put it all in one sheet. So we will continue putting all of the resources that we create through the collaborative here in this document. And I'm going to send that around after today's call to all of the participants, make sure that it's emailed out and everybody has access to it. And then additionally, we have a directory that has everybody's name and email address and city and state, so that if you want to connect with folks, it makes it easier to do that. Again, if you do not want to be added to the directory and you're new, then please just let me know and I will not include you on that. And that's pretty much all of the resources that I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of. Again, I will email out once we have today's recording finalized. That usually takes a couple days to get it added to YouTube, and then I'll send an email out to all of the collaborative participants that have the recording and then the resources that we discussed today. So there we go. All right, so I'm going to hand it back over to you, Nick, to introduce our next group.
Yes, thank you, Dory. I'm really thrilled to introduce this next group of panelists. We've got some great heavy hitter folks here, experts in their space, that I'm thrilled to start this first conversation around the state of play, and that's at the federal level, and an update on what we know. And of course, there's also a lot of what we don't know in there as well, which we may talk about in between the lines here. So thrilled that Amy Turner, who's the director of the city's climate law initiative at the Sabin Center. Many of you already know Amy. She came to the last convening, spoke there. Great to get her sense of real-time landscape on what's going on at the federal level. So she'll be with us, as well as Jen Weiss, who's the founder and co-director of the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund. So thinking about those clean energy transition financing mechanisms and what those might look like. And then finally, David Ingram, one of SSDN's municipal members here with Wilmington, North Carolina. He's the sustainability project manager, and wanted to have David in the conversation to specifically talk to some of his work around fleet EV transition and the study that they're developing now using EECBG funds, and kind of walk through that with him and learn as he goes through that ambitious project. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Amy Turner and let her go ahead and start the conversation.
So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I was thinking, as we were speaking, I wanted one housekeeping thing. We don't have the chat function available, but the Q&A is. So while Amy and Jen and David are talking, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the question and answer box, and then Amy, you can go ahead and get your slides pulled up while I'm speaking. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and put in your questions there. And then also, if you want to raise your hand, then Reed, who's helping us with our technical support today, can take you off mute if you want to ask your question verbally. So sorry for interrupting. Amy, go ahead and take it.
No. And I think Amy's got her slides up. Are there any other questions before we get started? All right. Well, Amy, go ahead and take it away.
Just talking to myself while I'm muted over here. Thank you, Nick and Dory, for having me. Thank you all for having me. My name is Amy Turner. I'm with the Sabin Center for Climate Change Law at Columbia Law School. I work with local governments across the country on a range of climate law and policy matters, and have met many of you over the years, your last convening, but also through other work with SSDN and otherwise. And I'm just always thrilled to be with you all. So I'm working on a new little bit of work around the first 100 days of the Trump administration. For anyone who's counting, we are on day 94. So I will be talking about just some of the big picture things that are happening at the federal level that have implications for what local governments are looking to do. It's going to be super high level, and obviously a lot of this is like, the administration does something and it, the action of itself raises more questions than answers, but we will at least talk through the state of play, and I'll try as I can to help think through what that means for vehicle electrification. So, if there's been one sort of big headline item over the last 3 months, it has been this federal funding freeze, right? Federal agencies, either withholding funds or suspending access to payment platforms or terminating grants entirely. Just a really chaotic landscape of federal agencies halting payments on a whole range of federal grants, particularly for our purposes in the IRA and the bipartisan infrastructure law space. This, of course, started with I guess a February OMB memo, January-February OMB memo that, directed federal agencies to halt all of these payments relating to climate grants. The landscape has shifted. That memo was rescinded, but, the federal funding freeze, such as it is at any given moment, which is a very fluid thing, is still very much ongoing. So I'll talk a little bit about the court cases that are surrounding the federal funding freeze right now. The first two cases that were brought are these two, the state of New York versus Trump and the National Council of Nonprofits versus the Office of Management and Budget. These were both brought the very day after the OMB funding freeze memo was released. And they've been through, quite a bit in court, each of them, various motions and appeals and, additional motions for enforcement. But the top line for each of these cases at this point is that the courts have issued what are called preliminary injunctions, offering some measure of relief to the federal funding freeze, limited as it is. We'll talk through that in a moment. But a preliminary injunction is essentially an order from the court that applies generally throughout the pendency of the litigation. So in these instances, the courts have issued preliminary injunctions that enjoin or prohibit the administration from basically, freezing or canceling IRA and EJA grants related to climate stuff in some form or another. So in New York versus Trump, this is a more limited preliminary injunction. It enjoins the administration from freezing IRA and EJA funds only for the 22 states and the District of Columbia that actually filed that lawsuit. This preliminary injunction does not apply to local governments, although of course if your state, and unfortunately many of the states represented here probably did not, but if your state was a plaintiff to this lawsuit, that would have some residual benefit for your communities. And the National Council of Nonprofits preliminary injunction is somewhat broader. It applies nationwide to all federal grantees that have IRA and EJA grants. But it only bars agencies from giving effect to funding freezes that are non-individualized, meaning, sort of top down, either the administration or the agency makes really, really broad funding decisions to like cut off entire swaths of federal grants. That's the sort of thing these preliminary injunctions apply to, not like individual funding decisions where where an agency might be claiming, however speciously, like fraud, waste, and abuse, or some other reason why it's cutting off funding. Those are likely unlawful for other reasons, but these two preliminary injunctions don't apply to those sorts of cases, only those very broad sort of blanket funding freezes. So of course, as a result, we've had more litigation around the federal funding freeze, where we have nonprofit groups suing to take issue, bring, allege more particularized instances of where federal funds have been withheld. So, we're moving on from sort of that blanket preliminary injunction or blanket funding freeze approach into more individualized decisions in which an agency might be canceling a grant program or, shutting off lots of access to the ASAP portal while it investigates, specious claims of abuse, whatever. So these cases, Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council, which was brought by nonprofits, and the Sustainability Institute versus Trump, which was also brought by nonprofits, but also 6 local governments. These funding freeze cases, really take issue with more specific actions that the agencies are taking to give effect to that funding freeze. So, if a project officer is, just sort of gone MIA and has ceased communication with a grantee, or if access to the payment portal has been cut off, or, if the project officer says, we just don't know, like, hang tight, right? Like, these are the sorts of actions that are being alleged in these more specific lawsuits. So far, we have 1 preliminary injunction in these 2 lawsuits, the Woonasquatucket River case. This is a really pretty good preliminary injunction. It applies nationwide to federal grantees of DOE, EPA, HUD, DOI, and USDA grants under IRA and EJA programs. So, if you have a grant from one of these agencies that was, appropriated through IRA or EJA, this is an opportunity to reach out to your project officer, let them know about this preliminary injunction. They should know already, but, let them know that you know about this preliminary injunction, and that they are required to resume payment under these kinds of grant awards. The Sustainability Institute versus Trump, this looks at least one different agency than the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council. It looks at DOT, and also is unique because it has local governments making claims about grants, federal grants that they specifically have lost access to. There is a motion for preliminary injunction in that case as well, and it is pending. The hearing was held this week, but the preliminary injunction decision is pending. So just to sort of wrap up this piece of things, the federal funding freeze litigation, we're getting these like pretty good preliminary injunctions, these prohibitions from the court that stop the agencies from giving effect to the federal funding freeze. But it's just important to understand that the 3 existing preliminary injunctions still only apply to non-individualized grant suspensions and terminations. So, the Woonasquatucket River is the PI is better than the first 2 preliminary injunctions in the sense that it applies to, let's say, an agency decides it's canceling an entire program without sort of looking individually at each grantee. That's the sort of thing it applies to. It's still, the administration is really sort of adjusting in real time and finding ways to make more individualized decisions around freezing federal funds. But still, these injunctions are super helpful in the sense that if you have a grant that's been canceled for, a reason that is not specific to you as the grantee, likely one of these preliminary injunctions applies, and you should let your project officers know that you are aware of them, and that they should reinstate your grant. And Lawyers for Good Government, a nonprofit group, has some good materials in terms of like a template email you can send your project officer if you're in this position. So, just a couple of more programmatic updates around the federal funding freeze. And I think folks at SSDN are like very on top of a lot of this, and it's also like a moving target all the time. But, we know that EPA has canceled, at least 400 grant awards, likely many, many more. These include things like community change grants, government to government grants, clean school buses grants, though I've heard rumors that those are restarting. Many of those should be covered by the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council preliminary injunction. If your grant has been canceled under one of these programs, you may be able to find relief as a result of that preliminary injunction. FEMA also, of course, has announced termination of the BRIC program. It's less clear whether this one is covered by a preliminary injunction. It's certainly worth pointing to the National Council of Nonprofits preliminary injunction, but it's not sort of expressly in there. And of course, this stands to have, really terrible consequences nationwide. It was, this is an interesting one in the sense that, it can be hard to see a lot of press on some of these grant terminations, but cities across the country, I mean, I've seen, press stories everywhere from obviously Florida, other states in the Southeast, all the way to Alaska, right? Like a lot of folks really rely on this program. I'll give a quick update as well on the litigation surrounding the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So as many of you know, the EPA issued termination notices for 2 of the GGRF programs, the National Clean Investment Fund and the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, in March. And almost all of those awardees, I think 6 or 7 out of 8 of them, along with some sub-awardees, have now sued both EPA and Citibank. Citibank is sort of the outside financial agent for GGRF, holds the money. And so, most of the awardees have now sued EPA and Citibank in federal court in Washington, D.C. This has all been consolidated into one case. Where we stand right now on that case is that the district court has issued a preliminary injunction. There's been some funny procedural stuff that's happened on appeal, but the sort of bottom line here is that GGRF is really in a holding pattern. EPA is prohibited by a preliminary injunction from terminating the NCIF or CCIA programs. But the awardees are also not able to draw their funding under these programs. That's sort of the state of play with the preliminary injunction, which means, of course, that those dollars are not flowing to clean energy projects that could serve your communities, and they're not flowing to community lenders like credit unions and CDFIs to fund projects within your communities. So the administration has also been busy at work on its deregulatory agenda. On March 21st, EPA Administrator Zeldin announced 31 deregulatory actions. I think he called it like the most consequential day of deregulation in history or something like that, to that effect. The things that are included in these 31 actions include like rolling back GHG and has local air pollution rules for power plants, vehicle pollution rules. And then I think really we talked about this at our last convening, but really significant for this group as well is the endangerment finding. The administration is looking to enter the process to roll back the endangerment finding. And without sort of taking up too much of my time here, the endangerment finding is the scientific and legal basis for effectively all EPA regulation of greenhouse gases. So if the endangerment finding goes away, that has really significant implications for vehicle pollution rules that can help catalyze electric vehicles. Many of these require formal rulemakings, including the opportunity for notice and comment. So when this starts to get underway, and it has not really yet formally, it hasn't been published in the Federal Register, local governments and groups such as SSDN and the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy may wish to submit comments in that notice and comment period, make your voice heard as to why the endangerment finding is important to you. I would say just, the bottom few bullets here, there's a real deregulatory agenda happening here. It doesn't all necessarily play out at the local level, but of course the sort of, top line here is that there's going to be less stringent regulation, and that obviously has significant implications, particularly in low-income communities when you've got more vehicles, more power plants, more factories, spewing really dangerous stuff into our communities, and we have less stringent federal protections in that regard. One last thing I'll note here. For vehicle electrification in particular. So there's a sort of like procedural thing happening around the California waivers to the Clean Air Act preemption happening in Congress. The bad news is that there are congressional Republicans that are trying to rescind the waiver for California's clean vehicle rules, including advanced clean cars too, which is, would effectively push towards all EVs sold in California by 2035. As well as other states that adopt that same rule. The Senate parliamentarian said that Republicans are not allowed to treat the California waivers this way. They are not allowed to roll them back in this way. Those waivers have been granted and they're granted. There can't, sort of no takebacks. But of course, this is continuing with Republicans in the House and Senate, and I expect it to continue to play out. A couple of weeks ago, there was a really significant state and local executive order. I wrote about this on the Sabin Center blog if you want to know more, but effectively it directs the Attorney General to identify state and local climate laws and develop strategies to stop their enforcement. There are a handful of state laws that are named expressly, none of them in the Southeast, excuse me. But we could see in the next couple of months, heightened efforts by the federal government to target local governments that have certain kinds of ambitious climate policies. Capacity-wise, I don't think the Department of Justice is going to have a ton of capacity to like file suit against every local government, but it's really too soon to say much more. And of course, we're having lots of layoffs at the federal level, EPA, DOE, HHS, just lots of folks either being laid off or taking the buyout program. So that's going to have significant implications both for how regulations are developed, but then also very specifically for your like lived experience of trying to get a hold of someone in the SCEP or in one of the EJ offices or whoever it is you're trying to work with. Like it's going to have just very day to day, like you might not be able to find that person and you might not be able to get your question answered kind of implications. Tax credits and elective pay. For those who saw me in January, this slide hasn't changed a ton, or February. Elective pay remains law, but reconciliation is very much like under negotiation right now, probably will be at least until the middle of the summer. So this is the time to file for elective pay if you have projects that qualify, and also tell your federal electeds about this program. Make sure they understand it. They might not. Tell them that you care about it, that it brings funding to their district. Like now is the time to make that case to your federal electeds. So I'll stop there. I think I've already gone a minute over time and hand things back.
Amy, thank you so much. That was a lot of great information and a very expedient presentation. So I think please let us know if you need any links there from those slides. I believe we have the slides. And Amy, I don't recall, we're okay sharing those?
Yes, you can share them. There aren't really many links in it, but you
The
can
last page, yeah.
see the information again.
Got it. And so Jen Weiss, would love to have you. It looks like you're already queuing up here, so would love to have you jump in when you are ready.
Good morning, everyone. That's actually not me, and I'm happy to share my slides if you prefer.
Sorry.
No worries.
Maybe that's Dory.
She's got a lot of emails to check those. So, hi, everyone. I can start by introducing myself. I am Jen Weiss. I am the co-director of the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund. We are a nonprofit green bank, and one of those lenders that Amy was just talking about that is hoping for a greenhouse gas reduction fund to become unfrozen. But I'll talk a little bit about that. I did also want to give background that before moving over to the Clean Energy Fund or founding the Clean Energy Fund in 2023, I actually led the North Carolina Clean Transportation Plan on behalf of the North Carolina Department of Transportation and worked with the wonderful Stacey Washington and her team in the South Carolina Energy Office on the EV Stakeholder Initiative. So transportation is near and dear to my heart, and I love thinking about ways that we can electrify the South. So really excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. We can go to the next slide, please. And thank you. That was perfect timing, whoever just pulled those up. Thanks, Dory. So I did want to talk a little bit more about what green banks are. I think you've probably heard a lot about green banks, especially around the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Wanted to talk about who we are, where we are. You can see the map there, and I'll talk about that in a second. But really, at a high level, green banks are mission-driven institutions. So we're trying to find ways to finance clean energy projects throughout the entire nation. So one thing that we always make clear is that we're not depository financial institutions. So we're not like a bank down the street where you would go and deposit money with a teller. We are strictly for funding, and some of us also offer grants. Really what our role is to mobilize public capital or to use public capital to mobilize private investment. So we're trying to take a lot of the money that's coming out of the federal government, out of the state government, sometimes local governments, and really use that to get more private investment from banks, from community development financial institutions, from credit unions and others to reach into underserved areas in the clean energy, green resiliency spaces. So in a nutshell, we're filling market gaps. I often say we're not trying to compete with what's already out there. If it's already there and working, wonderful. But if you're seeing a gap in a financing space, that's where green banks want to play a role and try to fill that gap. So we can offer financing, we can offer credit enhancements like loan loss reserves or sometimes loan guarantees. Usually not grants, but as I said, some of us are getting a little bit more into grants as we're moving forward with implementation of some of the federal programs. But really what we want to do is get clean energy markets at scale. Wanted to call your attention to the map. I know we're talking to a Southeast group, which is wonderful. This map is a little dated, so I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the different players that are in your markets. Up in Virginia, there is a great group called the Virginia Clean Energy Innovation Bank that you're probably aware of, that got set up, I believe, by their energy office. So they are starting to do some work in Virginia. Here in the Carolinas, the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund is actually operating now in both North and South Carolina. Down south a little bit more, the Freedman Green Bank and Trust is now operating in Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. And there's also, specific to Atlanta, but Invest Atlanta is a development authority, I believe, that's working in Atlanta. And then finally, but definitely not least, is the Solar and Energy Loan Fund, SELF. They're actually one of the original green banks, nonprofit green banks and CDFIs that's been in operation over 10 years, kind of a mentor to all of us. And so SELF is operating in Florida and many of the other southeastern states as well. Next slide, please. And I'm happy to make introductions to any of those if you're not already familiar with the green banks in your state. So here in the Carolinas, we are the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund. Now that we've gone into the South Carolina, we're looking at changing that name, but for now, that's who we are. Established in 2020 as a nonprofit, but really got up and running in 2023, back in March 2023, when I moved over as co-director, and Melissa Malcolm Weber is my other co-director. Our mission, as I said, is to fill market gaps. We want to help low-income households, nonprofit organizations, small businesses, maybe rural farmers, anyone who's not able to find the financing that they need today to be able to do the clean energy projects they'd like to do. Those are the people that we want to talk to. And we can provide accessible financing products in many different areas. You know, you'll think of renewable energy, building efficiency, clean transportation, but also resiliency projects. I'm starting to talk about septic systems, water projects, right? All different types of things that we can do to really make investments into these critical areas. I already said it, if it already works, don't replicate it. We are not looking to replace anything that currently exists, but what we want to do is accelerate that environment, bring more community lending partners into the ecosystem. And I already mentioned we expanded in South Carolina earlier this year. Next slide, please. So let's talk specifically about fleet electrification. You know, over the past years, I've heard a lot of the different things that people are thinking about as far as doing investing in fleets in your local governments, in your states, in your communities. A couple of the things I just summarized, and I'm sure you have many more, and I'd love to hear some of the other things that you're seeing, but one is the upfront costs, right? So electric vehicles can be more expensive at the beginning than conventional vehicles, which can limit the demand. If you've only got a certain amount in your budget to purchase new vehicles, you may look at the conventional instead of the electric because they might be more expensive. Now, I know the friends that that's going down, so this might be changing. Tax credits and grants can make EVs more affordable, but we're still working on the market to make sure that there are lending options available to finance the remaining part after the grants and the credits. Infrastructure costs. The uniqueness to EVs is that if you purchase an EV, you also need to make sure you have charging infrastructure. So that can add a little bit of an additional cost. You know, some of the things that we can look at are the utility EV ready programs that many of the utilities in our states are offering, or new type of services like EV charging as a service. There are a couple groups that are offering that so that you're paying one set fee ongoing monthly for the EV charging piece. And then finally, you know, as the AVs and the new technologies start to grow, we need to grow our staff capacity and knowledge of these. They're a little bit different than conventional vehicles. So kind of bringing into our space the understanding of the upfront costs versus lifetime operational savings. And I know a lot of people on this call can help with that. And then I think an interesting thing to look at is how to weave in these new vehicle to grid technologies where all of your electric vehicles can be a mobile battery fleet, right? That can help with building, you know, reinforcing the grid and bringing down some of those peak demands. So how can we work with our utilities to maybe share some revenues and costs on that battery piece? Oh, go ahead. Yep, I'm good. So the role of green banks, where do we fit in? Obviously, we're not the technology pieces to it, but we can fit in how we finance it. So one of the ways right now, especially as we have tax credits and rebates that are available, is to provide short-term or bridge financing for that upfront capital piece. We know we're going to be getting a 30% tax credit back from direct pay, but we don't have it up front. So green banks can come in, help finance that 30%, and then get repaid when the tax credit comes back. Similar types of things for rebates, also for things like, you know, if there's an EPA or other types of federal programs that are offering rebates, but they're just not there right when you need to purchase the vehicle. Other things we're looking at is, besides that bridge financing, if you need a long-term financing program for your sustainable fleets and charging infrastructure, green banks can start to step in and help you figure out that piece of it as well. I mentioned credit enhancements before. Loan loss reserves are things where it's a kind of a backstop to any defaults that might happen. Oftentimes, I find when we talk to other financial institutions, they don't quite understand the new technologies, and so they think there's a risk to them. Now, we all know that there's not, but in order to get them to be more interested in being part of this investment, we can sometimes offer this credit enhancement to reduce their perceived risk and invite them to be a part of the bundle of investment opportunities we can bring. Sometimes it's just providing coordination. Sometimes we don't lend at all. Sometimes we just work through different types of distributed solar energy storage, smart EV charging, just bringing the whole package together, right? We know it's complicated. And so green banks can help to think through that complication and bring in the right partners where it's necessary. And then finally, we will develop an innovative financing programs to expand things. So if nobody else is doing it and it needs to be done, we try to think creatively about how to bring that financing program to you and to other customers. Next slide. One example of this is my friends out started to be Colorado Clean Energy Fund. They are now called the Collective Clean Energy Fund because they represent multiple states in the western part of our nation. But they've developed that bridge loan program I was talking about. It's called their Charge Ahead loan. And you can see it's intended really to be that bridge between the upfront costs of capital and the when you get your grant funds or when you get your tax credits. And you can see this is actually from their website yesterday. You can see they offer some pretty good terms and rates for it. It is something that here at North Carolina Clean Energy Fund, we are hoping to launch soon. And I know other green banks are looking at it as well. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk about that funding. I'm so thankful to Amy for everything she's doing and all of the great information she just shared. So this can be brief for my part. Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, as you know and you heard, is one of the larger ways that that green banks and a lot of other community lenders were hoping to get some funding to really just dive in and do a lot of these clean transportation and clean energy projects. As you heard Amy say, right now it is in litigation. So there's a lot of uncertainty around it. The funding for the two buckets, the National Clean Investment Fund and Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, are frozen. We are not a subrecipient of either of those funds, so we are not directly involved in that litigation, but we are hoping to be partners in it and receive funding through it. And so we are closely watching all of this litigation that's currently happening. And as soon as we are able to mobilize those funds, we will do so. And so please, everybody, write to all of the people you can to get that money moving. And then the federal tax credits, I think Amy talked about this as well. There are quite a few that are available for clean vehicles, including one of my favorites, the direct elective pay. As Amy said, those are still available, creating a little bit of uncertainty because people are worried they might not be available, but I'm hoping people continue to move forward with those projects as well. Next slide, please. Oh, that's all I have. That's me, and looking forward to questions. Thank you.
All right. Jen, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And we're going to continue this conversation. I know we're moving at a pretty fast clip here, y'all. But what I would ask the audience is if you can put your questions in the chat, we will make sure we'll respond to all of those either now live or even afterwards or with the follow-up emails that we send out. But I would like to go ahead and move it on over to David Ingram and let him begin to talk about just his high-level project. He is just queued up to just give a couple-minute overview of the project, and then we'll move into the next conversation. And again, apologies about a little bit of the time crunch here, but we've got some great panelists, and they have a lot of information. We want to make sure they're able to share it. But go ahead and, as I said, put your questions in the chat. So, Dory or David, do you have any slides?
I don't have slides yet. Just wanted to provide everyone a brief update on where we are with our grant. And
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And David Ingram, take it away.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Nick, and everyone for having me, letting me share a little bit about where we are with our fleet EV transition. We're still in finalizing the contract with a firm that we've selected for our EV transition study, but we're using funding from our EECBG grant, or at least a portion of the funds to finance that study. And we really, using the study just as help us basically lay the groundwork for how we want to proceed in the next number of years to achieve some of our goals that we've set for transitioning 50% of our municipal vehicles to EV by 2035, and obviously looking down the road even further to 100% by 2050 as the technology allows. But the funding we're going to utilize for the transition study has a number of the study has a number of components to it, things like right sizing the fleet, making sure it's the appropriate size for the needs that we have as a city, looking at the timing, kind of what vehicles to replace when, which ones make which ones make the most sense early on versus as technology catches up and battery and infrastructure needs improve, helping us with the timing of the types of vehicles to replace and when. Also, of course, we got to look at the charging infrastructure. Obviously, we're going to have to install quite a bit of that. What are the locations that make the most sense to install that charging infrastructure? Are we going to have to do any capacity upgrades at any of our facilities? We recently consolidated a lot of our staffing into a single facility in our downtown area. So that's actually going to, we feel really help with that infrastructure issue as a lot of the staff and vehicles are now consolidated in one space. So glad we didn't do this 2 or 3 years ago when we were more spread out. So timing helps. What else? Yeah, the study is also going to help us look at establishing some kind of a policy for as we're, making decisions on the purchase of new vehicles, kind of having some steps that we go through to, there's got to be a reason to purchase an ICE vehicle as opposed to electric vehicles. So, establishing a policy to help us with that process. The study itself, it was vetted through both our Clean Energy Advisory Committee. We ran it through several departments to get their input on the RFP that we were putting out, as well as getting it vetted through our executive management team. All of those steps before we took it in front of our city council to approve spending the funding on the study here. So again, we're just getting started finalizing the contract. We hope to have it in place within this next month. We believe it's going to be about a 6 to 8 month process to get through that's at least that's what the vendor is telling us. So hopefully we can get through it and begin implementing some of the recommendations here within the next year. Certainly Jen just mentioned a few moments ago just some of the challenges in regard to this is obviously going to be a big change for a lot of our departments, how we navigate that change. And I think it's just communication and getting input from the various departments is going to be key in regard to success of this program. So very much looking forward to the next year or two and getting this program rolling. Right now we only have 2 electric vehicles, so we've got a long way to go to replace our fleets of 800 to 1,000 vehicles, somewhere in there, depending on what all we count. But yeah, long way to go, but happy to be on this road. Yeah, happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Wow, David, thank you. I think transitioning a fleet touches so many different pieces, whether it's the procurement and the funding to the people who are actually going to get in those vehicles and drive them and the success of that transition is dependent on all those pieces. So excited to learn more and kind of follow you through this process. I mean, that's a big undertaking. So thank you so much for being here. Again, I don't know in this moment if we have time for discussion questions, but please go ahead and keep putting your Q&A in the chat and we will get to those as well. special shout out to everyone, Amy, Jen, and David here for that first conversation. And I know just in the interest of time, I want to keep things moving along. I'm going to pass it over to Dory to introduce the next panel.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you to the three panelists. I did, there are the questions in the question and answer. So if anybody can answer those live, please feel free to answer those. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce our next speakers. We've got Caitlin Sweeney and Ed Gilliland with the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, or IREC, to talk about the Charging Smart program. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to y'all. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, Ed Gilliland with Interstate Renewable Energy Council. And let's see, do we have the slides up here? Okay. So, and then Caitlin Sweeney, you can say hi. And also with IREC. We are going to talking about Charging Smart. And so if you want to move on to first of all, the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, we are a nonprofit 501c3 dedicated to the rapid adoption of clean energy and energy efficiency. And we can keep going through these slides. We have three areas of focus, and one of the, we are in the local initiatives area, so we do work exclusively with local governments to support them in the facilitation of clean energy. We can keep going. It is the two main programs we have are Charging Smart and Soul Smart, and we put them under a brand of called Energy Ready. But both programs offer no-cost technical assistance and recognition to support local governments in facilitation of either solar energy, or in the case of what we're talking about today, EVs and EV charging. We'll move on. So what is Charging Smart? We're no-cost technical assistance and support local governments in the adoption of EVs, EV charging. We can keep going. And it is modeled after the Soul Smart program, which began in 2016, and now it has over 500 local jurisdictions that have gone through the Soul Smart program and been designated as a bronze, silver, or gold. Charging Smart got started in the fall of 2023 in the pilot stage, and we launched the program nationally this past January. Keep going. We've got lots of great partners that can contribute to the program. You can see in the top two rows many of the lots of national partners that support the program and are available to help localities. And in the bottom two rows, we have some state and regional partners that are very geographically focused. And but suffice it to say, we do work nationwide. Next slide. So we have industry advisory partners, and they have been instrumental in working with us to make sure that what we are asking local governments to do are consistent with some of their concerns, particularly on the regulatory side of our program. Go to the next slide. So we focus on anything and everything that local government can do to support EVs and EV charging. We divide that into 6 main categories, and as you can see there, and for all of those 6 categories, we have about 150 different actions that local governments can take to improve their practices. So each one of those categories has 20 to 30 various actions that they can do to improve their practices. And we go into each one in detail as we work through this program. The regulatory side of the regulation gets a little more attention than the others because that has been seen as the biggest barrier to the adoption of electric vehicle charging. And so we do, maybe that has probably 35 actions for that one. Next slide. So we have a point-based designation system. As you can see there, we have bronze, silver, or gold designation levels with different points to get those designations. I will sort of briefly walk through what that entails, just to give you an idea or flavor of the program, and then, but maybe not get focused too intensely on it. I can always do that at a later date or individually with the local government. Next slide. Okay, so for the bronze category, it's 80 points. It is geared towards localities that are maybe just getting into the game or starting to learn about EV charging and want to start the process to improve their practices. So it does not really require any changes to the zoning ordinance, but we do ask you to look at the zoning, to look at your permit application process, to put a permitting checklist online. So these are some of the required criteria. We also have you get points from the planning and education and incentive categories, and then points, any points from anywhere you want to reach a total of 80 points. Next slide. So we're looking now at the silver requirements, 150 total points. And here we're asking communities to have their zoning ordinance. Perhaps they have to update the zoning ordinance to include things such as permitting accessory use, charging by right, or allowing EV charging stalls to count towards minimum parking requirements, assuming you have minimum parking requirements, and to complete an initial fleet analysis. And that can actually is not the intense fleet analysis that communities often go through, but this is one that can be done online with just using an online tool. And then we ask for points in utility engagement as well as from any actions. And next slide. And now gold, we're up to 300 points, and we're asking localities to actually have installed chargers or facilitate the installation of chargers, to actually have fleets, EVs in their fleets. So this gets a little bit more involved. I can go back and again talk more about this in detail, but let's go ahead and move forward. So all of this, all these actions that we ask communities to undertake, we support it with lots of supporting documentation. We have a detailed program guide that takes all 150 of those actions and covers them in detail and provides backup information such as examples or sources for further information. And then we work with you specifically to help you get through the program, get the points, and using this sort of supporting documentation. The program is designed with the bronze, silver, and gold designation to be able to address communities that are just starting out for, say, a bronze, or communities that are further along in the EV charging game and they might want to try for silver or gold. Next slide. So the whole idea here is to not add work to your staff, but to make it easier to facilitate the growth of EV charging. And so even though we do put some time and effort into going through the designation process, ultimately it's to save time and make things more efficient and decrease the soft cost that is entailed for the development of charging and improve market growth. Next slide. We do, if communities are interested, and most are, we support them to help them get recognition for achieving designation. You're looking at a cohort of 9 municipalities from Minnesota that achieve designation, bronze and silver designations. Next slide. We currently have 89 communities in the pipeline. We have about 33 designated. And so you can see them from all around the country. So there's a lot of interest in the program. Next slide. So here's kind of a breakdown of those numbers we just took a look at. Next slide. So how can you participate in Charging Smart? There's really two ways. One is with through a cohort, and we have a number of cohorts around the country right now in, say, Virginia, Colorado, in California, Texas. And this is a way for a group of, say, 10 to 15 localities to work together to go through the program and not only learn from us and other partners, but learn from a peer exchange among yourselves. We do work individually as well, directly with you, and you're going to hear about an instance with Boynton Beach in a few minutes. And I apologize, we do have some lawn service outside. Hopefully it's not too loud. Next slide. So really, next steps determine if there's interest in cohort. But really on an individual basis, the community just needs to get a commitment letter, sign, do a self-assessment, online self-assessment, and we're really off and running. We'll work with you to get designated. Take the next slide. That probably ends it. That's us, and happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Ed. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the question and answer, or if you want to raise your hand and come off mute, then Reed can do that. We are going to have a polling question at the end of the call where we're going to see who's interested in participating in a potential cohort. So we'll be able to capture who's interested, or you can reach out directly to Ed and Caitlin, or I'm also going to send around a questionnaire to make sure that we're capturing everybody that has interest in participating in the Charging Smart program. So not sure that I'm seeing any questions right now. But Rachel, or I'm sorry, I think it would be good if we have you come off mute and share your experience, Michelle, with Boynton Beach and their Charging Smart for a little bit, and then we'll turn it over to you to talk about your Energy Edge rebate program as well.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Just trying to find my notes here. Sorry. So, just a little bit, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Michelle DeFreitas, the Sustainability Coordinator to the City of Boynton Beach. Dory asked to share a little bit about our Charging Smart work relationship. So, basically, we have started working on the Charging Smart scorecard to obtain the bronze designation. Scorecard requires us to provide documentation for IREC review and verification related to EV fleet infrastructure, permitting, and policy and planning. Currently, we meet with them monthly to go over the progress, and the IREC provides recommendations to help to move forward. This year, February 4th, the city signed a letter of commitment to becoming a Charging Smart designated community. The city is working with the Interstate Renewable Energy Council to develop best practices to equitably serve the community's EV charging needs. And this program offers free technical assistance to help local governments adopt policies, practices, and incentives that encompass recognized best practices for enabling efficient EV charger expansion, which the city aims to become a bronze designated by the end of this year. So shout out to Caitlin and Ed for helping us out. I know we've been working back and forth, between myself and Alana. So we're looking forward to being bronze designated by the end of the year.
Thank you, Michelle. And I also see in the chat, Megan Hale from Norfolk, Virginia, said that they're going through the process and it's been a great experience. They've ended up creating a Word doc of the self-assessment to share with their planning department and then submit the answers in an online tool. And then she's asking, would IREC or other municipalities like to use the document or be willing to create their own? So,
I believe we could share it. I mean, it's all about sharing resources right now. So, we we spoke with, I believe we spoke with Orlando on this before at the FSDN meeting in Cape Canaveral. And we also spoke to the rep from Charging Smart who was there as well. So I mean, it's going to be based and dependent on each city's needs and what they're looking to do and what designation they want to get to. But I don't see a problem if, you know, if we want to share or use a document going forward.
Thanks. And I think she was saying that they have a document as well that they would be willing to share too. So
Oh, that's great.
I love all of the
Yeah.
sharing. I think it's wonderful. And then in the chat or in the question, Don Foster said the city of Knoxville is going through the designation process. Really excited to have the TA provided. So thank you for sharing that, Don. All right. So if there aren't any other questions, I'll give it a second here. I just really want to thank Ed and Caitlin for joining us today, for sharing about the Charging Smart program. Michelle for sharing your experience with working with them. And like I said, we're going to have the poll later on so that we can capture interest in potentially moving forward with a cohort. So Ed, Caitlin, do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, we appreciate your time, and yeah, if you are interested in a cohort, we would be happy to work with you. We do have other partners that I see are on this call, such as the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. So we've got a lot of great talent out there that that would be eager to work with you and support you in a cohort. If you want to go that direction.
Awesome. And I see John Bonnets has his hand raised. Sari, can we unmute him so that he can share?
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much, Ed and Caitlin, for presenting. I just wanted to mention that some local governments are seeing the Charging Smart designation program as a way to become more competitive in an era of decreased federal funding for EV charging infrastructure to attract the private sector investments. If you've got a designation, then that's probably going to set you apart from other municipalities. So thanks again, and I look forward to getting any leads that y'all generate.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you mentioning that fact. That I think that you're spot on with that. All right, I don't see anybody else's hands raised, so we're going to go ahead and move along to hear from Michelle DeFreitas, who has already introduced herself. So I'll let her introduce herself again, and she's going to talk about their Energy Edge rebate program. So thank you, Michelle, for being with us. Really appreciate you sharing.
No
about your
problem.
program.
Good morning, everybody. Again, as I said, I'm the sustainability coordinator at the City of Boynton Beach. I work along with Alana Irwin. So yeah. Next slide. So we have in the city, we have a rebate program where residents are eligible to once they do energy efficient upgrades within their homes or even their businesses, they're eligible for a rebate. This started back in March of 2014. It was established and funded by the Green Building Sustainable Communities Fund under Resolution 14-042. Through this fund, the city provides up to $1,500 rebates to residents and businesses within a 10-year period that makes eligible energy upgrades to their homes and buildings within the city limits. It provides rebates to the residents and businesses that install it could be anywhere from solar to EV chargers, HVAC upgrades, roof replacement, reflective roof that is, windows and doors. We also do water heaters and a few other energy efficient upgrades, that insulation as well. The rebates are distributed on a first come, first served basis while funding lasts. And this program is run by our department, and we're housed in the water utilities. Next slide, please. So just to quickly go through the green building ordinance, which the program has to follow these ordinances in order to issue these rebates. Ordinance number 11-014, it was created April 27, 2011. It's the Green Building Program based on the International Green Construction Code, IGCC, version 2.0. Its incentives were expedited permitting, fees, and tax incentives. This then became the basis for the Green Building Fee and Fund. Ordinance 15-0.020, it was created August 18th, 2015. It removed the specified green building fee calculation and incorporated it into the building division fee schedule. The ordinance 19-011 was created March 19th of 2019. It established green building standards by a sustainable building rating system or a national model green building code, LEED, IGCC, Green Globes, Florida Green Building Coalition, or other approved certification programs. Right now, our City Hall is a LEED certified building. So that was a big thing for our city as well to achieve. It established Green Building Certification Grant Program as a financial incentive for those participating, especially for local businesses here. And it expanded uses of the Green Building and Sustainable Community Fund. Next slide, please. So the Green Building Fee. A Green Building Fee was established to fund the implementation of the program and the associated fund. The fee is included in all building construction permits, be it residential, commercial, and industrial, and is currently set at 0.05% of the total construction value listed in the permit application. The fee amount is subject to amendment by resolution of the City Commission. Next slide, please. So these are the eligible energy efficient projects that either businesses or residential customers can do when they'll be eligible. They start with like HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. There's different tiers with that one. As you can see, it's 800, 900, or 1,000. Insulation is the only one that it does not require a permit to be done. Everything else needs a permit. So yes, you have the doors and windows, the reflective roof. Next slide. There's a water heater, solar, the PVs, and the EVSEs. We haven't had a lot of the EVSEs. A lot of our rebates go to HVAC, water heaters, reflective roofs, doors and windows. Insulation is not much being done because a lot of the homes now are being built, up to code. So we are going to look to improve this rebate program within the next 2 to 3 years. Hopefully, we could revamp some of them. But for right now, we're going to stick with what is here already. Next slide. So to be eligible, eligibility is based on the Palm Beach County property appraiser records. That's our county tax records to show that the property is homesteaded. It gives the evidence of primary place of residence. So persons living in the city, they cannot have more like other properties that has homestead. We know a lot of persons come here and they buy homes as their vacation homes and they do, upgrades and they want to be able to be eligible, but that's not part of our requirements. Like it has to be their primary place of residence or else they're not eligible at all. If no homestead, person must be able to provide their voter's registration card and their Florida driver's license to be able to prove that they're a Florida resident. That address also has to match their residential address because they also have to provide the PAPA record, regardless of if it's homesteaded or not. But we go based on the homestead firstly. Next slide. Well, the application process is pretty easy. Basic information first, then it asks questions if you're a city employee or if you're employee resident. You select what rebate you're applying for. and then you'll be able to upload all your documents and electronically sign it, and it will come directly to us once you hit submit. Next slide. So the required documentation that you would need, you'll need the application signed and dated, the Palm Beach County Papa record, demonstrated proof of ownership occupancy, which would also show the homesteaded status, specifications of eligible products. So you must be able to show your receipts of, your purchase and fully paid receipts, because you can't apply for the rebate before you fully pay it off. Also, it cannot be like leased equipment. Some people also try to apply if they lease or they have a payment, a lease, like a HVAC unit, or be it electric vehicle charging, that would not be allowed. As I said, proof of payment, copies of all the permits and final inspection approvals, copies of your contractor's license. We typically tend to ask persons to have a local contractor within the city or within the county do the job, because more than likely they're already registered with the city, and it's easy to pull any information that we may not have from the customer. So we often tend to ask them to be able to go with a local contractor. They must also be able to provide a proof of payment with the name and address of the company performing the inspection, as well as a sales agreement, verification of the Energy Star qualified label from the product. So it can be the Energy Star label, the AHRI certificate, insulation certificate, the permits, as I said, for like EV chargers and so on, those things need to be in. And then you're also going to have, if you're doing any solar work, you have to provide proof of insurance. Once your project has been permitted, installed, and receive a final inspection from our building department, you will be able to submit your rebate application. Next slide, please. So we have some other energy efficiency and electrification projects ongoing right now. I spoke a bit about the Charging Smart already. So I'll move to the next one, which is the public EV charging strategy. Right now, we're working and currently developing a public EV charging strategy that includes implemented tier rates for Boynton Beach residents, City of Boynton Beach employees, and non-local users. As part of this effort, we are working with FPL to schedule charging times at park locations to address issues related to overnight charging. As recently as the end of last year, we had a lot of persons parking at parks that close at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. that we either had to have the vehicles towed, or we had to be able to find the owners to be able to move them. So earlier this year, we had some signage installed at the parks to say, sorry, to say no overnight charging allowed. And sorry, we had FPL put the chargers, sorry. FPL put the chargers on a timer. So we're also working on our water utilities energy efficiency audits. We're currently planning to conduct a citywide energy audit, beginning with smaller focus on our water utilities and plant facilities. This initial phase will help us gain a clearer understanding of energy consumption patterns and identify opportunities to reduce costs by exploring alternative energy sources. Renewable energy feasibility study. We also have plans underway to conduct a renewable energy feasibility study to assess which types of renewable energy would be most suitable for us as a coastal city. We've also been looking at microgrid planning and solar. And we also have some windmills at some of our pump stations that we are using to help offset some of the energy being used for irrigation. So we're looking to improve on those types of renewable energies in the near future. This is our contact information. Here you can mail your rebate program to us, your rebate application to us, or drop it off directly, or email it. And that's it from me. Sorry about the choking at the end, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm sorry that you're getting choked up there. Get yourself a drink.
No worries.
But I think that, we wanted, when Michelle was talking about their program, I thought it would be a great way to share with other folks in the collaborative, a way to use impact fees to make sure that the city has designated funds to be able to push their renewable initiatives forward with or without federal funding. So that's what we're trying to find, these ways and highlight them and share them with you as options. And I think part of what I found really interesting about the project is the safeguards that are in place to make sure that the money is going to residents and making sure that the money is well spent, how easy the process is. So if you guys have any questions for Michelle, go ahead.
Dory, one thing to add, I just wanted to share that even though we're housed in water utilities, we are looking to implement a water rebate program as well for persons who do like water conservation type improvements to their homes. We're working on that in the background, but I'm happy to share once we have that program up and going as well for anyone interested.
Great, thank you. So yeah, so if you've got any questions for Michelle, go ahead and put those in the question and answer, or if you want to raise your hand, come off mute, then do that. And again, if you've got an example of something like this where you're able to put an ordinance in place and or you have some other creative way to fund what you want to get done in your municipality, make sure that you're also letting us know so that we can have you on as a future speaker as well to share those ideas. That's what the collaborative's all about. And I also noticed that quite a few of the questions have been answered. So thank you to Amy and to David and to Jen for staying on and answering those questions. All right. In the meantime, I think we'll go ahead and get some of the polling questions up. So Reed, if you wouldn't mind, if you could queue up the first question about participation in a cohort for the Charging Smart program. There we go. So the potential exists to create a Charging Smart cohort with the ETS collaborative. Has this piqued your interest for a follow-up? So if you're interested, please now note that. If you're not interested, or if you need more information, we can connect you and make sure that that's happening. And Amy, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you taking some time and being with us today. And Rachel, I see your comment and the question and answer that you're working on your transition as well. Fantastic. I love that. So we've had 13 people respond so far. So we'll leave this question open for another minute or so, give you some time to respond. It's about half of the folks on the call have taken the poll. If you're having trouble with the poll, okay, great. Rachel, I see that you're in the Charging Smart cohort already. Fantastic. I guess we should have had that as an option too, that you're already there. But if you are having trouble with the polling too, then feel free to reach out via email to me and make sure that getting everybody connected that wants to be. David, I see you're in the process of joining the cohort as well, the Charging Smart cohort. So it's great. Looks like we're slowing up on the polling, but I want to leave it up just a little bit longer to make sure that sometimes the poll is like buried underneath the screen and you're having trouble finding it. So at least you guys saw my email. It's insane. I'm glad the rest of the desktop was hidden so that you couldn't see the gajillion tabs that are up running constantly.
Yeah, that was very brave of you, Dory.
That was super unintentional. I thought I had the, tech. I thought I had my one screen up, but obviously did not. All right, so I think, was somebody gonna
Sorry,
say
it looks like
something?
there is a new question in the chat, in the question box for Michelle.
Thank you, Casey. Going there now, but I'm moving things around. There we go. So Michelle, Kim McDaniel's asking, what is the funding source partially external
Yes, so I
rebates?
just read it. We currently don't have any external funding sources. This is part of our budget. It comes out of our green building fee or green building fund. As I said in the presentation, that fund was created for specifically for businesses, or when businesses they do, like when they pay taxes, there was a tax incentive. So if they're part of the green building program as a business, they become certified with the city, because they'll have to undergo like an inspection process, and we would go out, we would see what efficient upgrade they have done to their business. That way that money is the taxes they pay go into a green building account, and they also get tax breaks whenever they're conducting other business within the Boynton Beach area or the county area or whatever. So the fees build up from when they pay the tax, but obviously that tax is not the regular, from what I understand, it's not the regular level of tax that other businesses would pay. We've tried many times to get a lot of businesses on board, but a lot of this community is an older generation, so they're not quite into all of the upgrades and doing energy efficient projects to their business. They'll be more than anything, they would say, "Oh, I'm too old to be doing this," But that's how the funding is done, mainly through our budget and the green building fund.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, let's go ahead and end this poll and then get the next one up if you don't mind, Reed. So this next question is asking about future topics. So we want to make sure that we are listening to your needs and helping you achieve your transportation electrification goals. So the question, it's rank order. So each of the different sections you would rank it, 1 being the highest or most important topic, next all the way down to 7, which is the least. So the questions, the choices are for future topics, having utility programs to support electrification, hearing more about that, learning more about that, learning more about non-federal funding sources, state programs, utility programs, green banks, etc. The third choice is a deep dive on charging company offerings. The fourth choice is learning more about policy for EV safety or standard operating procedures. The fifth choice is permitting for charging stations. The sixth choice is fleet transition resources. And then actually, I had those out of order a little bit. And then the other, if you wouldn't mind, if you do have some other preference for a topic, then just go ahead and put that in the question and answer as well, so we can capture that. And so we'll give you some time to go ahead and rank those topics. may take a couple minutes because you've got to think about all the choices before you rank them. So I will stop talking and let everybody focus. And I'm looking now at the question and answer. John says, promotion allowed? Sure. And John is saying that everyone is welcome to attend their May 21st Clean Vehicle Demonstration Day at Piedmont Dragway in Julian, North Carolina. And there's a link. So check that out. And then Rachel, if you wouldn't mind, Rachel Delaval, 7 is most interest. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So Reed, can you unmute her so we can get a better understanding of that? The last choice should be other, where if you've got some other, another preference of something like a burning need that you would like to have as a future topic, and then put that in the question and answer so we can capture that. Rachel, you should be able to.
Yeah, thanks, Dory. I was just clarifying, with the 1 to 7 on the answers, 7 would be like the most interest.
No, I'm sorry. 1 is like your top choice, number 1 choice.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Sorry, that was not clear. All right, and while you guys are finishing up with that, I'm just going to go ahead and announce that. So our next quarterly call will be in Q3. We don't have a date set for that, unfortunately, so I can't give you today to put it on your calendar, but we will get that to you soon. And I also wanted to mention in the meantime that that we are very hopeful that funding will continue to support the collaborative. And this coming year, what we're looking to do is shift to a state approach. So instead of having a large convening with everybody together in a faraway land, bringing the collaborative to your state and having more targeted and specific conversations about solutions that apply just to your state. So as we hear more and learn more, we will be certain to share that out with the group and maybe calling on you to help try to brain hive some good ideas for locations for those state meetings. So I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody. And we are at 10:30. So I just want to again thank SSDN team for being such great partners. Thanks to my team for being such awesome troopers and joining in. Reed, thank you for the tech support, and Stacy and Amy for the tech support. Thank you so much to the presenters who were able to come give their expertise. Really appreciate it. And again, thank you to you participants. You are what make the collaborative go and make it so special. So thank you for being so engaged and sharing all of your thoughts. And Nick, Casey, anything before we sign off?
I would just say thank you to Dory. You're a rock star. You always make this so fun and so powerful and so effective. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.